Hello and welcome back to the Conversations with Kristi podcast. Today's conversation is one I've actually been wanting to have for a long time. I'm joined by Damian Porter, also known as the How Not to Die guy, and I did say it wrong in the podcast, so apologies, Damian. And yes, that's a bold name, but once you hear his background, you'll understand why. Damian is former New Zealand Special Forces, former police officer, and now a firefighter, someone who has spent decades learning how to stay alive in high-risk situations, and more importantly, how to teach everyday people to do the same. In this episode, it's a little bit back and forth, but we talk about situational awareness, self-defense, what actually happens when violence enters your world unexpectedly, and why bravery isn't something you are, it's something you choose. We also explore something really important, how practice changes the reaction, why freezing is normal, why fawning is biological, and how small shifts in behavior, using your voice, creating distance, noticing red flags, can dramatically change outcomes. This conversation isn't about living in fear. It's about being prepared without being paranoid. And quite frankly, it is one I think everyone should listen to. Let's get into hearing about Damian and check out the resources at the end or in the show notes if you need to know more. Hello and welcome back to the Conversations with Kristi podcast. I am a little bit excited because I'm speaking to Damian Porter, who is the How to Not Die guy. And Damian and I have been planning a podcast for a long time. We seem to have gone a whole year, I think, almost, with the discussion of like, let's catch up and have a conversation. Because although an interesting catchphrase, you're actually a really down to earth guy. So I really loved our last conversation when we had a chat about, being on a podcast together. And I really love your messaging. So Damian, just for my listeners, so they know who you are and what you're about, can you just tell them a little bit about yourself, about your history?
Sure, thank you. Great to see you, Kristi, and I'm glad we managed to make time to get on the show. Yeah, my background is quite diverse. Answering the first question, so the last question first, then I'll go back to the background. How Not to Die Guy was brought about by me wanting to share my special forces and police experience with others so that they could be safer and I could just teach some of the cool things that I know. I was told by my partner at the time, the stuff that you think is normal, nobody else would think. It's a bit like Bear Grylls, we love watching Bear Grylls. I love watching Bear Grylls. He does some things I don't have the skills for, but that's normal to him. And anybody else sort of thinks it's pretty cool. So my background, I spent 10 years in the New Zealand Army, 3 years of that in the New Zealand Special Forces. I was with the New Zealand SAS counter-terrorist and hostage rescue team. From there, I came over to Western Australia. A few of us moved here. I spent 3 years in police and then I've been a fireman for the last 15 years. I've been teaching unarmed combat ever since I learned that around 2000 in the military. I passed a course in 2000 by the instructor for the New Zealand military and New Zealand Special Forces. And then when I joined the Special Forces in 2005, when I was selected for the counter-terrorist team, I did that in the Special Forces role, which was a lot harder course than the average army. But the reason I started teaching it is because I wanted to be able to remember it. By teaching something, you get good comprehension of it. And I started teaching just a couple of friends. One was a little same height as you, actually, Kristi, 5'1" model, 20-something years old. And another guy was an army guy, about 25 years old. And we just practiced what I've been taught. And then other people saw it and it was becoming popular. I started then, I got instructor qualified, I got dispensation from my instructor to teach it. I was teaching city councils. I was teaching groups, small groups. And to be fair, mainly women and some in the public role. And I loved teaching it because I was teaching something that people didn't know what they were capable of. And it worked. It wasn't a sport. It was what I teach, Kristi, is what was taught to spies and commandos in World War II. And they got 6 45-minute lessons over 6 weeks to then go behind enemy lines, literally like the movie of the Ministry of Ungentle Warfare or the Rogue Heroes. And this was taught to the Nancy Wakes, the females, the professors, before they went behind enemy lines and did the business. So I teach something that requires no skill, but it had to work back then.
Yeah.
And our biology in our world hasn't changed from World War II to now. Still, to defeat a human, you've got to attack the eyes, the throat, and the knees down. And I teach that. But then with the policing, of course, as you know, I had to bring that back a little bit, and I learned how to use voice. I learned how to use low threat deterrence and low threat actions. And I put that together in a package of How Not to Die Guy. And I put a post out the other day. I teach the elderly. I
Yeah.
teach the bullied. I teach the weak. I teach the females. And I'm not being sexist, but you're 5'1".
Yeah.
Even me with two arms that are supposed to be in slings, I'm bigger and stronger than you, and you've got some skills, but you got to assume that attacker's bigger, faster, stronger, more skilled, armed, has a pre-plan. So because of that stuff, I love teaching those people. And what about the busy mum? All these people that can't go to jiu-jitsu, the 84-year-old can't go and learn these things and go and do boxing. They're great sports, but I teach those people how to survive and how to win the fight, but more importantly, maybe how to avoid it happening in the first place and how to avoid the bad guy, because the bad guy should target those groups of people that I mentioned. The busy mum with the toddler under the arm and the pram on the other side, that's a great target for a bad guy to steal from her. Or the older person, they're a great target for mugging and so on, and rightly so. So I love teaching those people is what my background is teaching good people how to handle bad situations, I guess.
Yeah, and that's amazing. Like, you're right. And I think what you're alluding to there, and you didn't say it, was situational awareness. Like, when you're in the special forces, the army, the police, you're constantly looking around, you're constantly observing. I was in a shopping center a little while ago, watched someone walking through the shopping center. I watched them, right? And my friend who was with me was like, "What are you watching?" And I'm just like, "Oh, that guy is like acting strange, or that person's acting strange," and I've had people say, "Oh, you're never off duty, are you?" And I'm like, it's just situational awareness. When you clock something that doesn't seem or fit in, or it just doesn't seem right in that moment, there's nothing wrong with watching. There's nothing wrong with keeping on alert just until, again, maybe that thing or that person moves on or walks on. And another thing, I was walking in a city, I was in Adelaide, and I was walking, there was three women, I was in the middle, smallest person there, and this male was walking towards us. It was dark, everyone was like, they sort of we came in closer to each other, and I eyeballed him directly and said, "How are you going? How's your night going?" Right? And so the person was like, "Oh yeah, good, thank you."
Yep.
And I was like, "Have a good night." And they were like, "Oh, why'd you do that?" And I said, "Because I wanted him to know I'd seen his face, and also I wanted him to not see me as a threat, like that I was easily to be mugged, or we were not a group of people who could be mugged." I mean, generally they won't attack just, a group. I was like, and I do that all the time, right? And
Yep.
it's not something I feel like has been taught to me. It's something that I know works, because when you see someone that you think is a threat, and you first of all look them in the eye, second of all talk to them as if they're another human being, then they're going to think twice about mugging, robbing you, etc.
Absolutely. There's lots of things that went on there. And you're right. I did infer situation awareness, being aware of what's going on. And you saw the weird guy walking around that you're watching, that your friend asked you, what looking at? It's just looking for what's different. I teach my 10-year-old boy, that doesn't look right, does it? And it's not that he's on hyper alertness. He just sees something different. And I love what you do with all the awareness training with the kids and so on. That's not right. That's not normal. And that's what I teach is, see the thing happening, take some action, which you did. You actually said something to him, and then it's better than just putting your head down. Most people in your position in the middle of that group would just likely put their head
away.
down and try to, I can't quite bring my arm up, but I haven't seen that. I put my head in the sand sort of thing. What a great thing you did. There's basically two types of bad guys. There's the bad guys that see you as prey and they're going to sneak up on you, or they're going to do something silly like try and take me on because they think they're bigger and stronger. Now, the other day I was walking along in a singlet. I think I didn't have my slings on. I've got some muscles here, and that can make a bad guy or some sort of guy try and have their ego out and want to fight you. And all I did was say, "G'day, mate," just like you did. He's not my mate. I'm lying to him. "G'day, mate." And he goes, "Oh, g'day." And you smile. I'm only smiling because I want to show that I'm not a threat to him.
Yeah.
And it's like my Sergeant Major used to say, be friendly, be polite, but have a plan to kill everyone you meet. Now, the last bit's a bit extreme, but I was being friendly. That is a bit extreme. Yeah, I was being friendly and being polite. True. And of course, he thinks, oh, that guy with the muscles is my mate.
Not a
sort
threat,
of thing.
yeah. Not a threat.
But that's one side. But the side that's you don't see coming is the ambush, that person that's hunting you down. And that's when you don't see it coming, Kristi, which you talked about, situation awareness. If something doesn't feel right, if something doesn't look right, it's not. Please, listeners and viewers, don't disregard those beautiful spidey senses, those beautiful red flags you have. Take notice of the first red flag, because it's really important. And you saw that in the mall, you saw it with this guy, and then you take action. Action's better than inaction. Something's better than nothing. And, what you did might have infuriated that guy if he was a crackhead. Might have.
Might have.
But in the situation it worked out. Action's better than nothing. And if it did infuriate him, you'd take another action, which I'm sure you would have.
Yeah.
But take action, because inaction will really get you in trouble.
If you are already preempting something, and this is what I learned in the police, right? And this is what I've learned through life. If you preempt the worst and you're prepared for the worst, the best outcome is nothing. Because, like you said, if someone's high on drugs or substance abuse or whatever, I've even had conversations with them. I even eyeball them and say, hey, doing, mate? How's your day going? And so it's not, and if they're completely losing it, I'm like, all right, have a good one and keep walking, right? But I'm watching behind me to make sure that they don't come and like crack me over the back of the head and take whatever I'm carrying. I'm watching them to go, I'm just making sure. And I remember walking my neighborhood. I used to run at night and run in the morning when I was in the police. And I used to, 5 a.m. dark and stuff like that. But if I saw a car, any car, I was watching that car until it was out of the street. I was watching it from behind. I was watching it. And that was just me going, I just need to be aware that not everyone's a safe person. And a lot of people, and we said this before we press record, a lot of people think it won't happen to them. We walk around with these blinkers on, or this belief, or this head in the sand mentality where we're like, it won't happen to me. It's not going to happen to my family. And it's the same with child sexual abuse, right? We think that it's not our family, not our neighborhood, not our community, not our school, not our whatever. But when we have that attitude, we're not prepared, and we're not making sure that we put in the safety in place to make sure it doesn't happen to our kids and our families.
But let's look at a couple of things. The listeners here might be thinking, these guys walk around a high alert all the time. No, we don't. My little boy just goes, that doesn't look right, and just takes it into his brain and then just carries on, just a little bit aware of it. But let's translate that to it won't happen to me. Bondi happened a few weeks ago. The gunman, I believe, got out, and unfortunately he got out in front of an elderly couple. Those people I don't know their age. I'm going to just grossly say 70. They got 70 years of experience each of seeing things. They saw a gunman and they took action.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it didn't work out, but they took action. I would suggest that an 18-year-old girl and 19-year-old boyfriend with the combined experience of less than 40 years, they would have cognitive dissonance. That they wouldn't conceive that it was a gunman, and they probably would have frozen a little bit. It would have done something else different than the elderly. I loved what the elderly couple did. They took action. They saw it, identified it, and they went for that person straight away. And that was brilliant. And
they did their best in the moment, and unfortunately it didn't end well, but they did their best.
Exactly. And that's all we can ask. And I've written articles on this. So that's a thing that happened here in Australia, literally close to home. I wrote the article for the stabbing in France about 3 years ago in the playground. In the playground, you're a mum, I'm a dad. The playground, you're just looking for the weirdo, right? Or the bully. The person's not playing right with your little 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Well, in France, there was a playground, and the grandparents had these toddlers, and a Syrian man with a knife came in and stabbed the hell out of them because they all didn't take action. I wrote these simple rules. You got to see the things, have a look at the thing, turn towards it, and then take some kind of action. And that's what the elderly couple did, and that's what the 52-year-old guy did when he tackled the gunman. He took action. It wasn't amazing because the guy went on, but he took action and did something. That's what you got to do. But you got to run those files in your head, Kristi, that you did with the car coming towards you. Just have a look at it and make sure it's gone. And then you've got that awareness that you can be ahead of the curve, which is what you basically said. If you're taking action, you hopefully come away with a good result. But it will happen to us at some stage. I hope it never does. But when it does, it's going to be a surprise. And if you haven't practiced it, that's basically what my last 4 minutes of talking has been. If you haven't at least practiced in your brain, just like safe people and unsafe people that you talk about, if you practice in your brain, you then got some kind of forward action you can come out with. If you haven't practiced it in any way, you're going to be behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, and that's what, I think people might listen to this and go, oh my gosh, like, do we have to be on hypervigilance alert all the time? Do you know what? I prefer being alert and being present than not. because the worst things that have ever happened to me have come from nowhere, and you're behind the eight ball. You're fighting for your life. You don't understand what's happening, and you can't be prepared for everything, right? But I think the police training gave me we did scenario training, same as you. You practiced and practiced and practiced different scenarios time and time again, and it might never have happened. And I never was involved in an active shooter drill, yet I practiced it every year. I was never involved in a high-risk vehicle stop, yet it happened every year, and I had to practice it every year. And similar to that, what you teach and what I teach is we're just practicing so that if it happens, we don't freeze in the moment. We know what the next step is, the next plan. And that's why we teach kids about body safety. If you get your early warning signs, this is what we do next. We go and tell a safe adult. And the reason why we go and tell a safe adult is because that safe adult is meant to, first of all, listen to us, hear us, believe us, and then do something to make us feel safe again. And that puts that protective factor in place. With you, what you're teaching people is situational awareness, what to do if someone does attack you. And it gives you the confidence to walk around not feeling scared and vulnerable in every situation, because that's what ultimately happens. And I think you work a lot with people who might have been abused or had some form of abuse in some way.
I have. I'll talk to that, and then I'm going to come back to the point I'm saying it so I get my caveman brain remembering. I'm going to come back to practice. So I'll remember the word practice because I'm not writing notes. So unfortunately, a lot of the people that come to me have been through a violent situation. I'd rather they haven't. I love teaching people not to get bullied or hurt. That's my job as a protector. I was hostage rescue. Policing is protect life and property. That's the only job. You know that. And same thing with firemen. Unfortunately, they've been through those situations. I can't undo that, but I can talk them through and teach them skills of it won't happen again. And I love hearing when someone can talk me through a confrontation. I'll paint an example. The last in-person big course I did with, I think, about 20 females, I say, has anybody been in a confrontation or situation before? And this woman said, oh, yeah, I was on the train. I got on the train in the morning to go to work by herself. There was just her in the carriage. And a guy got on and he sat next to her. Well, that's weird, isn't it?
It's so weird.
So weird. That's a red flag, if anything. So please don't ignore that, people. Do better than this lady. But she kind of ignored that. I think she might have got up and moved, and he moved. Well, that's super not good.
That's like, five alarm fire there.
Yeah, exactly. So she got off at her stop. That's also a mistake. So she made 3 mistakes, and I'm being a bit mean here, listeners. She got off at her stop, and he did. And then he followed her to her work. She went in a straight line to her work. Also a mistake. End of the day, she ended up having to run inside and lock the door on him, and he was banging on the window. Well done, her. She's safe and she won. So I said to her,
he knows where she is.
Well done. You're fine. You're safe and you won. But perhaps we want to go back a little bit and learn from those mistakes. So I'm going to teach people, if you were in a confrontation or something and you managed to get out alive and safe, good job. Now here's maybe some other files, some other ways you could deal with that in the future. I'm not judgy at all, but I'm going to give you the best way to do that in the future. And yes, working with those people that have been through abuse of all different kinds, or they're thinking about, or they know someone that has, because I think the last young female course I taught, we talked about, I think the presenter asked, how many people have been or know someone that's been sexually assaulted? And I think all the hands went up. Very telling. Well, we don't want that to happen to you again, or don't want that to happen to you in the future. So we'll go through that. And I love teaching that. But let's go back to practice. It was great that you used the word practice. So, Kristi, have you ever given anybody first aid?
Yes.
Did you do a first aid course?
Yes.
Okay. I've done lots of first aid courses from 17 years old. I do them every year right through to now. And you do scenario training that first aid course to pass it, don't you?
Correct, yes.
You come in the room and there's the instructor, either good or bad, has got someone lying there, maybe near a PowerPoint, and we do doctors ABC, danger. Oh, there's a danger to me. I'm going to have to get a plank of wood and hit the person away from the PowerPoint because they're being electrocuted. Well, that's practice. You practice CPR, you practice first aid. Done, I think it was last year, I've done 30 years of first aid course. I've never seen a grand mal seizure. Have you seen a grand mal epileptic seizure?
No.
I'd never seen one, but I've had actors do it in front of me. I've seen it on TV when we're doing the courses. My next door neighbor had a grand mal seizure, and it was exactly like I saw on the video, exactly like I saw someone acting out. And I just did what I'd
you trained.
practice. You are far better, Kristi, at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai than I ever will be, and I am right now. But I will destroy you in a combat because I practice basic combat. And I go back to what I practice. And practicing safe people and unsafe people, practicing first aid is the same thing. So back to the hypervigilance, we just practice a little bit, and you're going to go and do that on the day, and you do your first aid like you did when you practice. You do your self-defense in your practice, or you look out for the weird person that you practiced with.
Yeah. And that, you say you're practicing safe and unsafe people, it's practicing like listening to your early warning signs, practicing knowing what to do. And in that case of that woman who was on that train, what would you have done differently?
So I told her what I thought, and they're only ideas and we all make mistakes, but I thought that the first thing she should do is ring transit police. When you're on the trains, transit police know where you are exactly because the train's on one line. You can ring 000, but then police have to go to transit police. It's a bit of a faff. Ring transit police as you're moving away and tell them what's going on. Just like I say to the kids when there's a fire, ring 000, tell them where you are and what's happening. We'll figure it out. Ring transit police, tell them where you are and what's going on. The bad guy's going to hear it, but what's the worst is going to happen? You can't make it any worse. You're on a tube with the guy. So move and ring transit police, and they'll be there pretty bloody quick. Yeah. And if they're not there by the time it goes sideways, you're going to have to do some combat. And if you do get offered a stop on the phone to transit police still, hopefully the transit police are coming to that same stop. What I wouldn't do down the track is go to your residence, go to your work. I'd go to a safe place as an adult, just like a safe adult for a kid to go to the safe place, go into the shop, go into the business, cafe. Go into the police station, whatever, but go to where other people are that can help you and just start screaming your head off. This guy's following me, get away from me. And we're all going to help. And the bad guys don't want trouble and they don't want to get in trouble unless they're crackheads. They can't tell the difference. Bad guys don't want trouble. If you're smashing them in the throat, you're a bit of trouble. If you're yelling and screaming, this guy's following me, the police might come, he's going to get in trouble.
Yeah. And you're right. Most of them are cowardice. Like they're doing it because you're not making a scene or saying anything, and sadly we're conditioned. Most of us are conditioned not to create a scene. We're conditioned not to be loud. We're conditioned to be quiet and just, so, and I can understand it because a lot of us, especially women, but even young boys, men, you're conditioned to fawn, just be nice. You're conditioned to freeze, or that's your biology's going to freeze. And this is what I teach as well, like talking about being loud or going to that safe person or, get away, is because I teach kids, or I teach parents to teach their kids, you have the right to say no. And if someone says something, there's a thing called an emergency no, right? So we have to give our kids permission to be loud and say no when they don't like something. Because if we've never told them it's okay if you say no, and if anyone keeps doing something that you don't like, you can be loud, you can yell, you can scream, you can run away, you can put your hands out and push them away, you can punch them, you can do whatever you want. Because if that person doesn't stop, then that is your right to do that. And like emergency no is like, no, get away from me. Like, don't touch me, don't touch my privates, don't whatever it is that child wants to say in that moment, that they will never get in trouble for it. Because, and when we teach kids from very young age that no is no, everyone should respect it, then when they get to adulthood, they're not scared to speak up. They're not scared to advocate for themselves. Throughout their childhood, they'll feel safe to say that because they know that that's their right.
You said it's okay to be loud or be loud. But you practice that, Kristi. I could see it in your face. You could almost see it in your eyes. Remembering that. I remember you learnt the police get back drill.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've practiced that. Hopefully the kids practice being loud. And I can't show it, but the low threat confrontation I teach, push as hard as you can at the person and yell, get back. And you yell it, but we practiced it. And when I teach the girls, and sometimes the guys do it as well, but mainly I teach it's the females that do it. I get them to come up to me and you're going to push me as hard as you can and yell in my face with that war face, get back. And I say, what's going to happen is you're going to either push you really hard, and that's me good, and you're going to go, get back. I'll do this little mousy voice. Or you'll yell, get back, and you'll just stroke my chest. It's like
they need to practice.
Exactly. It's funny because that's what happens. I've been teaching for 26 years. I know how humans are taught combat and how they react to it. If you don't practice yelling, those little kids and the girl, the female that fawns, if you don't practice yelling, you won't do it. So I love getting them their big, strong voice and they yell, get back. And after about 5 or 6 embarrassments and laughing and remember the fawning, we
let
also,
it all out.
you girls laugh and smile
Giggle
when you're embarrassed. Then they start really going for it. And then all the girls are all happy. So
Fired up. Yeah.
you've got to practice these things, even just yelling, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because when I went through the OSTU, I can't remember.
Police Academy,
yeah, the Police Academy OSTU section where you're training to use your firearm taser and all of that. I remember doing the high risk vehicle stop and I was like yelling and everyone was waiting. Everyone had to have a go. Anyways, and I was yelling at the car, at the actor, and all I heard from over here was, oh, you can tell she's a mum. Because it was like my mum voice, like it was like, ah. And I don't know, I wasn't allowed to yell or be loud when I was a kid, but I think there's a thing about when you realize that it's important to have that switch, and I do, and that pushing back, get back. I have had to use that a few times because I'm small and people do stand over me or have stood over me. And it doesn't leave you even after the police, right? Because I've had people try to get into my space and I've pushed them back and gone, get back.
Yep.
And you don't do it timidly because it's not going to work and no one's going to take you seriously. You actually have to push them back and use your voice and be real, because you can bluff people into believing that you're going to be serious about it. You might not have the next step under control, but if you bluff enough, people are like, ooh, okay, I don't know whether she's about to go apeshit or not.
You got it. I say we need this person to do a behavior that may escalate, but we need to change their mind. If it's another woman you're drunk inside the toilet at a nightclub, or it's somebody kicking off in front of you, or it's a bully in front of you, you need to change their mind. But you probably don't need to chop their throat and break their knee because you're going to go to jail. That get back drill is a brilliant one. I love it. But you're talking about being loud and you talked about fawn, and I said embarrassed. Why would we care about what someone we don't know thinks? So I remember a couple of times my boy's been around and there's some stranger says hello to them or says, maybe says a nice-ish comment or a not nice comment. I'll say, don't talk to that guy. We don't talk to strangers like that guy over there, do we? I'm reinforcing to my boy, but I'm sure as shit reinforcing it to the guy or the girl. Why should my boy talk to a stranger? No way. Why should a stranger have any right to talk to my boy? I may be a normal dad with holding my son's hand. I literally turn around and say, make sure we don't talk to strangers like that guy there. I don't care what some stranger thinks of me.
Yeah. I mean, look, within reason, I think I agree with you 100%. I had a question the other day on my Instagram.
I wouldn't do it to a nice person, by the way, Kristi.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Like if they're calling something out, because obviously maybe you're a bit of a target because of your muscles. I don't know.
Could be.
Because you're tall and muscly and you look like you can handle yourself. Maybe that makes you a target, because I feel like we bully or we egotistically do things. I mean, females can be really mean to other females if they're intimidated by them. Men can be intimidated by other men. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me because I'm just trying to be a nice person to as many people as possible, right? But I agree with you. Like I had a question the other day on my Instagram. A mum said, how do I deal with strangers trying to talk to my kid?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm very sneaky because I make it about them before they can make it about my child. So I usually, again, do that verbal judo. I ask them lots of questions so that they have no time to ask my child questions. They have no way to do it because I've just gone and made the conversation all about them. Oh, what do you do? Where do you work? And then I'm like, oh, isn't it? And then I might, if I'm feeling really spicy, I might throw in, isn't it weird how we expect people to answer questions?
There you go. You're doing it in Kristi's way and I'm doing it in Damian's way. Same result. And if it's a nice, normal, say an elderly person, of course you can let the little one talk. But there's people, remember we call cops shit magnets? All the just the scumbags come and talk to us and they want us to start talking.
Yeah.
Why would we let those persons talk to our kids? And you've nailed it there, your verbal judo.
Yeah, well, I don't know. They didn't teach it in the academy when I went through, but it was something that was actually, and they really do need to do more of this because unfortunately we're losing the skills of conversation. Our generations are now losing. My daughter, who's 18, has said to me for years now, my generation doesn't even know how to talk to each other. They're too busy on their phones. And I'm like, And she's grown up around adults. She's an only child. She's grown up having conversations. Like, she knows how to eyeball people and talk to them. She knows how to talk to strangers. She's going to be okay. But I just think that, we need to teach everyone how to have those conversations and to, be confident, because that's part of it. Like, confidence is a big part of it. And if you don't have confidence, fake it.
Yep.
Okay. That was my saying in the police academy. Fake it till I make it. Fake it till I make it. Because I didn't feel very confident in the police academy. I can tell you that.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I don't go around beating my chest. I can't do that at the moment, clearly. I assume the attacker is bigger, faster, stronger, more skilled, armed, has a pre-plan. Thinking about my special forces training experience, what if the guy, if I'm thinking he's armed, and he pulls out a machete, you've seen it before, a machete out of his jeans, or pulls out a needle. If I think about these things, then I can go worst case, and I'm not going to think I'm better and stronger because I've got some skills. If I think about that, then I'm going to be doing all my job to get away and to get my loved ones away. I don't want to be in that situation. I don't want to fight. But sometimes, and we haven't talked about this too much, sometimes violence enters your world immediately, like Bondi twice. There was the knife attack, which I thought was worse in the malls. But what do we learn from the knife attack? In the videos, we see a dad, a mum, and a child, and the guy with the knife comes running at them, and the dad just turned around and faked it, just like you said. He turned around at the guy, and the guy ran away. The guy with the knife ran away from the dad, who turned to face him. That dad couldn't have done anything. He was going to get stabbed to death. But because that dad turned around
he presented as like a threat. He presented himself as a threat.
Yeah, exactly. I thought the Bondi stabbing one in the mall showed us a lot about human behavior. You've got the famous now bollard guy.
Yeah.
If someone's got a bollard and I've got a knife, he's getting stabbed. But to the knife guy, bollard guy was a real threat, and he ran away. He ran down the escalator. So that shows violence can come upon you, and you have to take action. And it worked for those people. It was great.
It usually does. I'm not saying it every time, and I'm not saying it's a. If you've got someone who is completely determined to hurt you, then it's fight for your life kind of situation, right?
It is.
But in most cases, like you said, they're gutless. They don't want to get caught, or they don't want to get harmed, or they're trying to preserve their own life so that they can do as much harm. And and this is what you learned through all of this behavioural stuff, is that they are wanting to do as much harm as possible for as long as possible in those situations. And we didn't really talk about going down this conversation topic, but they're wanting to do as much harm as possible. And so when a threat comes on them, they're going to turn the other way. And it's the same with child sex offenders, mind you.
Right.
Because they don't want to get caught. What happens when they get caught? First of all, they're going to be shunned in the community. They're going to end up in the court system. They might or may not be found guilty. But like they do it for years before they get caught, usually. Like, they can have 10, 15 victims in their lifetime, maybe even more. And so they're very gutless. And that was my experience with them. They're very gutless, very much. They play the victim. When they get found out, they will turn it around about the child or the family that's, come forward. They turn it around about them not liking them. They gaslight everyone. They make everyone feel like surely this person hasn't done that, right?
Yeah,
but they're very gutless. And then what they do is they're trying to get away with what they've been doing. So they run and tuck tail. They'll move schools, they'll move communities, they'll move places, they change partners, So it's really, most of these offenders are gutless. And that's why when someone stands up to them, they turn tail and run.
You've put up a great subject on exactly that, plus what you said before about how I do teach the people who've been through, unfortunately, different situations, I'll call it. And it's bravery. People listen to this by now might think that you and I, Kristi, are brave. They might think that. But I'm here to tell you all now, nobody's brave. And I've been around the toughest, baddest warriors in the world. And if I haven't worked with them in New Zealand SAS, I've interviewed my show. I've interviewed people from Black Hawk Down. I'm literally got remember Eric Banner from Black Hawk Down, the movie? Yep. Well, the character, Hoot, he's coming on the show. I've interviewed what you would think of the bravest people in the world. No, we choose bravery. We choose to be brave. So that child that's going to speak up at that time, they might be freaking out, but they might choose bravery.
Yes.
And that woman on the train that I talked about might choose bravery by freaking out and calling transit police on the phone. 100%. And I might choose bravery when I know I can't use my arms, but there's something that I got to protect my boy from. You have to choose bravery. And we're not brave people. The people that you think are brave, they're just going choose
Yeah.
continually. And I know you know what it's like. I can see it in your face. But for listeners out there, you're going to have to choose that at the time, and listen to this conversation might help you jump over that barrier to stand up to the bully, to stop that person from hurting you sexually as a child or an adult,
Yeah.
or to stand up to that person that's taking your stuff and make that choice. But it's about choosing bravery, which is a subject I want to bring up.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I'm not a brave person, but naturally, like I make brave choices. Like I make, when I've confronted someone, when I stood up for my daughter to a bully or at school, or I've gone and, like I'm usually shitting my pants but I'm good at faking it. And I'm also good. I also have the training, the practice, and the knowledge to go, okay, this is not okay. And as long as, you just get better at choosing that. You
Through
get better at
practice.
through practice. Yeah, it does come down to practice. All of it is like, I was terrified in the police academy of I was small. I couldn't jump the 6-foot fence properly. I was not fit, and I didn't feel fit enough for everyone. Everyone was faster than me. I used to get a bit TMI, but I used to get diarrhea every time I had to do PT. Like I
Oh,
used to
wow.
go, I was like anxiety
A
driven.
full biological
Yep.
drive.
Yep. And I was like, I do not want to be here, but this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
And that was me choosing bravery
It
in those
was.
moments.
It was. It really
It
is.
was
And
stubbornness as well, bit of stubbornness in there as well. But and I don't choose again, we have found jobs outside of police, outside of our other careers, and that's a different type of bravery again, because standing on a stage, teaching people, putting yourself and making yourself vulnerable, that's a different type of bravery. I think as parents, it's easy to be brave for your kids because they mean
yes,
so much to you. So it is easier when your child is the one being harmed or your child needs you to stand up for them. There is parents who don't choose that, and we know that. But I think sometimes just be kind to yourself. You have to be kind to yourself and realize that these are not natural instincts.
I agree. They're trained. I just want to relate a story. It does relate to this somehow. I had a mum bring her 7-year-old girl. That's really young to teach this stuff to. I think 7 or 8-year-old girl, and I think 11-year-old boy, obviously brother and sister, to me. And the threat was a psychotic dad, their biological dad, with dual custody. Is that the word you use?
Yeah.
Shared custody. And it was in case he went psychotic when they're in the house. But I had to teach them stranger danger. You know what to do if your kids are at home and someone knocks on the door. What do you do? Do you answer the door? No, you have a look at who it is. Who do you ring? You can ring the police. You're not going to ring mum and dad because mum and dad can't help, by the way. Don't ring hubby when the house is on fire. Ring 000.
000.
That's a fireman's wife has done that before.
Come and save me.
Didn't work. I had to teach them stranger danger, and then now you have to get out the back door and go to a safe place. The cafe across the road is a neighbour, But it was actually, without telling them, it was actually in case dad had become the threat. But I had to teach them to make that choice and practice it, just like you practice a fire drill in your house. Which door are you going to go out of? If there's a fire, where do you go and meet? It's the same thing if someone comes through your door. But it was interesting with that one, how she was so brave. The mum, she brought her kids to me to learn a little bit of bravery. But I was quite amazed that she had the bandwidth to be able to realize these kids need a bit of skill training. And I was very honored that I was the one that she brought them to.
Yeah, and that's so true. Actually, one of the things that, I don't know if you remember this, but one of the things that happens when there is domestic violence or some sort of threat to children and to families is they do a threat assessment, obviously, and then they do a plan on how to get help if the person comes into the home. So they actually sit down and plan if the person turns up their front door. So you were doing that, but adding in a little bit more to it. But basically, if someone comes to the front door and it's the person that is, there's a violence restraining order or that they've harmed them in the past, okay, this is what we do. We, if they come in, we go and lock ourselves here, or we go and call this person, or we climb the back fence and we go to this house, or we go to this place. And so and they do that planning because this happens so often to families where someone's a threat and that there's not much that police can do until they're charged, they're found guilty, they're put in jail, or if they even get that far. So
that's the first time I've heard of it, Kristi. I mean, I've many times heard of the story in person. Had a VRO against this guy. It's normally the guy, but hey, I know tons of men that have gone through domestic violence. I've got a VRO against this guy, but he did this. He broke in the house, or he did this. He hurt me. Gosh, ladies, a piece of paper from a magistrate isn't going to protect you.
No.
So please take the ownership and the maybe expensive or maybe brave step or whatever it is to go and then do something like you just said. That's on top of that. And that's a holistic way of keeping you safe. And if you've got a family, you've got a responsibility, in my opinion.
I think that's what we're talking about here in this whole episode, really, is like your experience is helping people understand, first of all, those three things, those three tools that they need is to, and help me again because I've gone blank.
Generally, I teach people how to win the fight and stay alive. Both those things are pretty important. You want to win by being able to be away and he can't chase you. So he's got a broken leg or can't breathe or can't see forever. If it's that threat, if it's not just some bitchy woman in the nightclub.
Yeah. It's only if you have, it's warranted that you do it.
So the law states, and this is the next part. So the next part is stay out of jail. If in the circumstances you believe them to be, not me, if you believe them to be, Kristi, 5'1", it's reasonable to use that level of force. So win the fight and stay alive, stay out of jail, and deal with the psychological consequences after.
Yeah.
You had psychological and biological consequences before doing PT. Well, I'm sure as hell going to say after you put a round in someone's head, you're going to have a psychological consequence after as well for just doing your job. So you got to deal with that. And hopefully by listening to and seeing us here, we're going to talk about it, be open about it before and after as well.
Yeah, and you're right. Getting yourself out of a situation where you feel like your life is at risk or your personal safety is at risk because, it might not be life-threatening or you might not know what they're about to do, but you feel at risk. And that was right. It has to be justified. Yes. You have to justify and my husband, time gone by, he'd be like, if anyone ever breaks into my house, I'll kill them, kind of thing. The typical blokey bloke thing to say. And I'm like, well, you're technically not, you have to be justified in doing that. Yep. You can't take a gun to a knife fight and you can't take a knife, and you can't have the level of force has to be even. However,
no.
No, I know. I was about to say.
Enough to overcome the force being used.
Yes. However, you can use just above that to be able to overcome it. I'm 5'1", right?
Yeah.
Someone your size attacking me, I'm going to need more than just my arms and my legs.
Maybe your baseball bat that you've got there for the kids' T-ball, and we're taught this in the police academy. It's in the mitt and batter in the boot of the car because I've just come from T-ball. I forgot to get rid of it.
Away.
Maybe it'd be justifiable for you to use because I'm a soldier and I'm bigger than you. Maybe it's reasonable. Absolutely.
Exactly. And this is the things that we're taught. It has to be reasonable force for what your belief was in that moment. My belief is I'm going to die. So therefore, however, it doesn't stop you from going through that. It might keep you out of jail, but it doesn't stop you going through that trauma of the whole situation, which is, going through potentially having charges against you, potentially having to go through court and defend yourself against what your level of force was, etc.
Well, that's something that's interesting here in WA, that self-defense is not a right in WA law.
I know,
crazy. It's actually self-defense in WA law. It's different in different places in Australia. Listeners and viewers and around the world is completely different as well. But in Western Australia law, self-defense is doing a harmful act to another person, and it may be the defense in court to doing a harmful act to another person. So you've got to be really be able to say those words nicely, or we used to say to write it up really well, of why you use that level of force.
Yeah. It's not easy. And I think that's the thing. Having a plan in place, I think our whole conversation is based around, we're not saying you have to be hypervigilant and on alert all the time. Like, we're not saying that. That's why, but my mind, from my experience, knowing my child knew what to watch out for when it came to harmful behaviors or unsafe behaviors or any inappropriate behaviors from an adult or another child, meant that I knew my child was armed and knew what to do when that happened. Yep. Knowing how to, situationally be aware, have a little plan in place. I still do it now. Like, I still do it now when I think something, my alert goes off. I'm like, okay, what's my next step if something happens? I still do it now.
If you've seen that happening before, that what's happening. Most of it's just moving away a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, that be that crossing the street,
Adding
or
some
be it just
distance.
putting you between the weirdo and your kid. It's just doing something. Or what if you drive up in a car to a car park and you go to get out and you're just about out and there's a weird guy? What's stopping you from closing the door of your car and driving away to another place? It's just our behavior, our non-practicing. I love teaching people those files. If it looks weird, it probably is, and just go and do something else. Go move and
You're
don't
not hurting anyone. You're not
No.
hurting anyone by choosing not to get out in that space or waiting until they've moved on or
Yeah.
whatever it is. And I think in Australia, we're much luckier than other countries, especially because in Australia, we're having a lot safer nation, but overall, but it doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
It's always going to be a surprise when it does, Kristi. You know, when you put on the uniform at the police, you're ready to go and do things. When we get a call at the fire station, I'm ready to go to the car crash. But if a car crash just happens in front of us both right now, we're behind the 8 ball, but we're pretty good because we practice a little bit.
I don't know. I'm about a little bit out of practice these days, you know, and one of the things that, you know, sometimes I do think, like, what would I do now? Like, I don't know. It's just ingrained in me to like pre-plan certain scenarios. Driving along, crash happens. Doing this, you know, but I've seen crashes that have resulted in fires or having to pull someone out because the car's about to catch on fire or you see a spark or something. I've seen that happen.
And I never, so ironically, I never have seen that. We're really slow to it if we were, but you've seen that and you've got more practice and experience of that. So your skill level is faster. So we've been talking about making decisions. If I go into a room and I see a bad guy with a gun and I'm doing hostage rescue, I look like I'm John Wick because I've seen the thing and I've reacted. But all the things. The time between seeing the thing and pulling the trigger is really, really short. It's just practice and practice, practice. So you're faster at going, that car might go and fire, you pull that person out. Same thing as you're faster at seeing the weirdo down the mall and moving, or, you know, seeing that guy walking towards you in that group of three women and you said something. The persons that listen to this might be a bit slower, but practice makes you faster.
Yeah. And because you brought that up, I will say this. When I was in Austria again, I got like not reprimanded, but during empty hand combat or empty hand tactics, which means that it's just your hands and your body. You're not using any weapons, right? For anyone who doesn't know. But so during empty hand tactics, I got multiple fails because at first I used too much force. So I went too hard. Second time I went too soft because I was too scared of using too much force. And so I was constantly and so I had to practice it over and over and over again of putting someone into a arm bar, putting someone into a hold, making sure that I handcuff them properly, you know, and one of the reasons why I did get, and it's hilarious to me now, like I think, but at the time I was like, what are you telling me? I'm 5'1". Why are you saying I'm using too much force? I can't hurt anyone. And they were like, no, you hurt us. And I was like, okay, dial it back down. But, the thing is that I was really slow to begin with. Like my reaction times, I actually got reprimanded because I was so slow to react.
Yes.
Like something came up, like a threat came up and I was like, there was a delay, like my little mouse on the wheel was really slow. And then I would react and it was already done. Like it was too late.
Yep. It's normal. It's super normal. You were just a normal human doing that. Like I wasn't like John Wick when I joined the Special Forces. I was insanely slow and would have looked like a complete fool. But it's normal. Just like you said the words before all split up, fight, flight, freeze, and fawn are all normal. Fawn's not very normal for a male. It's very normal for a female. Freeze is normal from a baby. It's biological. Flight, maybe you'll run. Fight is not normal, really, unless you've practiced it. They're all normal human reactions.
Yeah, and also our childhood experiences also will come into play when we're an adult. So for me personally, I was telling you about my brother, right? My brother was much taller than me, much bigger than me, and we used to fight constantly. And I got really good at running and locking myself in a bathroom, or I would punch first and push him off before he got me held down. Because once I was held down, I had no hope.
Yep.
And so that kind of trained me for the police. But at the same time, my reaction now is someone gets up in my space. One of my family members ever comes up into my face. I had a very angry, drunk interaction. I wasn't drunk. The person was from a family member, and I literally pushed them back and said, "Get out of my face." And that was a reactionary thing. That was not me doing it from that was something I've been trained to do.
Yep.
But in the same breath, that took time to build. That took time to do.
You practiced with your brother. You
Yeah.
practiced. And I guess I could probably sum up some of my experience with this. I was learning and teaching the unarmed combat. It's got fancy words in the military, but that's basically it. But I was also boxing. I love boxing. I was boxing with a very good coach, and there was a Commonwealth boxer there as well. And, I'm a younger guy. I said to this Commonwealth boxer in the change room, I said, listen, if I ever got in a fight, what do you think I'd do? Do you think I'd box, or do you think I'd do what you see me do with this chopping throats and gouging eyes and breaking knees thing? He said, Damian, it'll be whatever you practice more.
Most.
Holy crap. I stopped boxing that day.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to come up against somebody better, but it's what you practice and it's what comes to the foremost. And you're practicing with your brother, they're conditioning you for now.
And what I was actually saying was that if you're conditioned in childhood to run and hide, you'll run and hide. If you're conditioned to fight, you'll fight. If you're conditioned to fawn, you'll fawn. And it's a biological thing, it's a survival thing that you've learned from a very young age to do. So it has to take time, practice, and knowledge to override that. So anyone who feels bad that they've ran or they've not fought or it's actually literally takes, like you said, that bravery, those seconds of bravery, that 3, 2, 1, let's go, turn. I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway because I need to.
Yep.
Anything like that. I have actually, and I use this with dogs too. I don't know about you, but did you come across a lot of dogs that were trying to attack you?
I do teach how to eliminate that threat. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, in policing, you're always, if you're going into a warrant or if going into someone's backyard or if you're, knocking on a door, you might have dogs that are aggressive. And I was actually at the beach the other day with a friend walking, and these 2 big ass dogs, we had our dogs, we have little dachshunds, by the way, 2 big ass mastiff cross somethings came flying at us, and I stood in front of both the dogs and yelled at the dog, and I was like, get back, used my mum voice, and I was like, get back, stay, and put my leg out and basically stop them from getting closer. Because in my experience, and it works the same with people, is that if you allow them to get as close to your dogs, because your dog will react to that dog, and then you'll have a dog fight. Whereas I was preventing, and I was the biggest person there. I made myself big, I made myself loud, and those dogs just ran around us and kept going. And my friend was like, why did you just do that? And I was like, 2 dogs versus 2 dogs, 2 dogs on lead. First of all, dog fights about to happen. Second of all, you just don't know if these dogs are going to attack us. So you have to make yourself bigger.
Exactly. You did exactly what that dad did for his family at Bondi. You turned to face it and you became the bigger thing. Gosh, all we're trying to do here, all I try and do, and I'm sure you're doing the same thing, is I'm trying to put a file into someone's head. One file. They might take away the dog file there. They might have taken away the get back file. They might have taken away the unsafe adult file. Put a file in someone's head that they can use later on, and hopefully it's going to be of use to them or someone they love. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to teach you that the world's scary, but the world is real, and you should have some practice at some of the things we've talked about.
Yeah. And so how do people find you, Damian, if they need to find you in the How to Not Die Guy on Instagram? I love that.
Super easy. How Not to Die Guy Instagram, punch it in, put How Not to Die Guy in Google. I'm sure I'm going to be the first weirdo that comes up.
No.
And hownottodieguy.com. I have people message me all around the world, and I'm there to help. We talked about domestic violence for guys. That's been an interesting one. Every guy I messaged back, which wasn't a lot, it was about 6 in the last 2 years. They said it saved their life because they were going to do bad things themselves.
Yeah.
They've been ground down so much. So How Not to Die Guy or hownottodieguy.com. I will message you back. I'll reply if you want some help on anything. I'm here to help. As you are. It's really my purpose. I love teaching good people great things.
Yeah, and you really do, you're like me. You just want to pass on as much knowledge as possible to help prevent anything bad happening. And if it has happened, maybe that knowledge will help you feel a little bit safer and sleep a little bit better. Because at the end of the day, when something bad happens, It just requires you feeling like you have some control that will help you feel a bit better about what's happened to you.
I agree.
Yeah. For anyone who doesn't know, poor Damien has had surgery on his on his muscles. So every time he said, "I can't lift my arms," it's because he literally cannot lift his arms.
Yeah. I do have one little quote I've used for years, and it's ego will get you killed. You know, if you're a guy and you think, oh, I can be better than that, and the other guy, and you're going to get in a bad fight. Well, ego will rip your pecs off in the gym as well. So don't do what I did.
Don't do what you did. No, and I've always, I think one of the things that I've always used, because I was so little, I think it was my superpower really, is that I used my voice. I was able to talk people around. I was able to calm situations down. And I could do that before I became a police officer. I think it's a learnt thing that if you just, and it's funny because my family always go, when I get quiet, it's dangerous because I'm about to unleash. And so I was able to be very calm and, be quiet and then speak. And my family are like, oh, if she gets quiet, then it's all hell's about to break loose because you're about to eviscerate someone with your words. And I was like, oh, that's a horrible thing for you guys to say. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, that's nice. Yeah, but thanks, Damian. I really appreciate your time. I hope your recovery goes well. And I really hope we'll be able to catch up in person because we are actually in the same state.
The irony of how we meet virtually is lovely to be on your show. I appreciate you taking the time, and I do hope this helps someone else as well.
Yeah, it will, for sure. Before you step back into your day, just take a breath. That was a lot. We talked about Bondi. We talked about, being vigilant. We talked about incidences that might be quite confronting, but it wasn't about hypervigilance. No, it wasn't. It wasn't about assuming the world is dangerous, but it was about awareness. It was about practice, about choosing bravery in moments that matter. Violence is rare, but when it happens, it's fast. And the difference between freezing and responding often comes down to one thing: preparation. You don't have to become a fighter. You don't have to become someone you're not, but you can practice using your voice. You can practice noticing things that feel off. You can practice teaching kids that no is powerful. And that practice builds confidence. It's not about ego or aggression. It's about calm readiness. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it, leave a review, or send it to someone who might benefit from it. And if you want to connect with Damian, you can find him at How Not to Die Guy on Instagram or hownottodieguy.com. Stay aware, stay empowered, and I'll see you in the next conversation. Please reach out and check out all the resources in the show notes if you need any support.